start. Okay, we are live now. Thank you so much for joining us, IKIGAI Live Chat, episode 6 today. I have a wonderful Lee Carroll here with me today. Thank you so much, Lee, here with me.
Yeah, my pleasure, Mayumi. It's great to be here.
Yes, thank you. So before we move on to ask Lee questions and his wonderful introduction, I just would like to quickly introduce myself first. So my name is Mayumi, or some people call me May. I'm a qualified naturopath, and I just love of holistic approach. So I believe I'm in definitely the job that I'm dreamed of for many, many years. And also, I'm a founder of Ikigai Live Life to the Fullest group in the Facebook, and we actually reached over 1,000 people for the last 4.5 years. And I'm actually surprised that people are so curious about this concept. And Ikigai is the Japanese word. So where I come from, I'm Japanese, born in Japan. And briefly, some people may not know about Ikigai word. Iki means to live or life, and Gai means worthwhile. So translation would be worthwhile to live, having a sense of meaning in your life, live purposely, live fully. My Ikigai journey for the past few years evolving, and lately I mentioned this in the previous episode with amazing people that I interview with. To me, Ikigai is to feel alive, and important things for me is not necessarily always reach to the positive outcome. And quite frankly, I noticed recently when I actually make a mistake or the things didn't go well, first of all, I feel disappointment. That's actually also feel alive. But I realized, okay, how can I do better next time? The driver to move forward. I recently noticed that feel alive Ikigai part. And the reason for this live chat today with Amazingly and for other people, um, I would love to learn. I'd love to hear from Lee today. What's his passion? What's actually the driver for him to move forward? Hence this Ikigai Love Chat. And if I can learn from amazing people like Lee today, why not share with others? So again, thank you so much, Lee, for here with me for this live chat. I'm so grateful. You are actually my teacher and mentor and the person I look up to highly in my profession. So thank you so much, Lee.
My pleasure.
And first of all, could you introduce yourself here with us?
Certainly. So I'm a trained Western medical herbalist. So I've got a Bachelor of Health Science, and I got that degree qualification in 2013. I graduated top of the class, and my GPA was 6.2 for the whole course, which is, when I look back on that, and that nearly killed me. I'm 65 now, so that was 2013, so 11 years ago. So I was in my mid-50s when I did that, and I was working full-time while I studied. I did a 3-year degree in 4 years. And as a younger man, I did a science degree. And so I've got a Bachelor of Science where I majored in botany and zoology. I did a little bit of mycology. And I've been in the herbal medicine industry since 1990 now. So I've had broad experience, across a lot of different areas. And today I'm a consultant. I'm a practicing herbalist. And like an active father. I've got adult kids that I still closely interact with. Married to Rosie for 37 years. So we've got like a vibrant, kind of personal life. It's sometimes a bit of a juggle, balancing all of those things. So that's a little bit about my personal stuff. No doubt more of it will come up when we start discussing the
Yeah, sure.
Ikigai, kind of aspect.
One question before the actual question. So you just said that you were studying 4-year university while you were working full time.
Yeah.
Is it okay if I asked you what sort of job you were doing when you were studying?
Sure. So just to give you a little bit of history then. So I started with a company called MediHerb in 1990 as the production manager. And then I worked for them up until 2009. I won't reveal all of the facts because you ask me more questions and then I can, like reveal things appropriately. So I worked for them full time up until 2019, and then there was a change, and I realized I wanted to study herbal medicine, and so MediHerb allowed me to become a consultant where I would offer my services as a consultant to them directly. And I'd had a long history with the US, and I set up a consulting business into the US where I was working with people that were representing the MediHerb brand independently, and I would provide education to them. So I was doing education for MediHerb. I was doing education for myself, teaching healthcare professionals how to integrate Western herbal medicine into their clinic. So I was doing that work. So it wasn't a 9 to 5 type job, but it was full time. And I was in the US. In those 4 years, I was averaging 100 days a year in the US, doing that education. And because I'd had so much history in herbal medicine, the course wasn't that hard for me, but I was fearful of not doing well and what that would do to my reputation. So I'm a bit of a perfectionist, but I've never been a high academic achiever. My first degree, I barely scraped through. My professors they saw the potential, but they're very disappointed with the outcome. So I did apply myself, more than what I would have. So, there were many nights, when I would work late, writing assignments and all that sort of stuff. And then the challenge of juggling all of the clinical stuff with all of my travels. And there are occasions where I would be doing a clinic on one afternoon, and then that evening I'd fly to the US, and then I'd arrive, and then that day I'd do a seminar. I don't know where I got the energy from. I couldn't do that these days.
Wow, that's amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much. Yes. So I'll move on to the next question. Is okay, Lee?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely respect your dedication, and I can see why who you are right now to influence practitioner like me. So thank you for sharing that. So my main question, thank you so much, Lee. So first of all, how did your interest and curiosity in natural medicine begin before your professional career started? Was there any specific moment or event that made you feel this calling in Western medical herbalism, if that's to say it that way?
Yeah, it was a long journey, and I could say that I was the black sheep of my family. I grew up in a family of tradespeople. My father had his own business, fixing up cranes and heavy equipment in factories and foundries. His training was as a fitter and turner. My brother was an electrician. My sister was an airline hostess, as you called them in those days. And my mother was a secretary. And neither of my parents had much schooling. And my mum died when I was quite young, when I was 14. And so from the age of 14, until 18 or 19, I had to deal with a difficult stepmother who didn't want me in her house. And all of that stuff. That's quite common, you know, the traumas that people go through. So when I left home after I finished my high school, and I got accepted into Melbourne University. I took a year off, and then in that year I went and worked and got some money. And in that year I discovered cannabis, marijuana, and the first time I was, you know, properly stoned, I kind of had this epiphany that you know, life wasn't just all pain and hardship, and you weren't just destined, you know, to play out the patterns, you know, like of your, you know, familial kind of upbringing, whether it was paternal or maternal. So that very significantly impacted on my future. So I started reading esoteric books on spirituality. I first started reading about Sufism, and then I became really interested in yoga and interested in plants as medicine, not just cannabis, but, you know, like all of the medicinal plants. And so when I got to university and to choose my subjects, I'd already been accepted into the science program, but I hadn't yet chosen what subjects I was going to study. So I chose predominantly subjects from the botany department, and with a few subjects from the zoology department. I did a bit of mycology study as well. So that kind of got me into that mindset. But I was very aimless, and I was very hedonistic, and I didn't have, you know, like I wasn't given the skills and guidance from my family to be kind of self-sufficient in the world and to be like an independent unit. I was, you know, at risk of, you know, like not achieving anything, and, you know, getting more caught up with drug taking and alcohol abuse and all that sort of stuff. So at university, I met an Indian man who was a yoga teacher, and kind of became my de facto father, and taught me a lot of skills, and, you know, really put me on the correct path of you know, achieving what I really wanted to achieve. So that at age 19 was when I first met that person, and that set me up for the life, you know, that I'm now living. And the true purpose for me has kind of slowly unfolded. So I've become passionate about the things that have been in front of me and interested me. So as a result of that interaction, you know, with that yoga group, you know, I got involved in when I went through university, I got a small scholarship, and that was back, you know, I started uni in 1979. So, you know, back then my rent was $25 a week for a room. So, you know, rents are 10 times that now. But I had no financial support from my family. I had the savings small savings from that year of working. So I got a government allowance, and I needed to, by the end of the first year, going into the second year, I needed a supplementary source of income. So I started working in a hot bread shop, and that hot bread shop was Old Style Bread Centres. It became Brumby's, which many people would know as, you know, like it's probably on the decline now. Baker's Delight as a hot bread shop is more dominant, but I worked in what became that Brumby's organisation for 10 years, and was very passionate about, you know, making the world's best bread and making healthy bread. And Kerry Bone was a friend of mine, and I was, so it's a long answer to the question, but that's okay, isn't it?
No problem, Lee, please
Yeah, so
express
working in the
yourself.
bakery industry is really stressful. So lots of long hours, lots of night shift, and because of the night shift, you know, I would sleep, you know, often 2 sleeps a day. So I'd sleep during the day, and then I'd have a short sleep at night before the night shift, and a poor quality diet. I was often working, you know, 7 days a week. So that took its toll on my health. So roll forward to 1990, my wife and I were running our own hot bread shop in Brisbane, in St. Lucia, a Brumby's bakery that was doing really well. And I was only working a few days a week. And I don't know what month it was. It was kind of like the middle of the year, but my poor health had finally caught up to me. And I got a diagnosis of insulin resistance from the doctor. So I did the 2-hour glucose tolerance test, where you take a big bolus of glucose and then they measure your blood every 30 minutes for 2 hours and see how your body responds to that input. So I was in the early stages of diabetes. And for me, that was a really like, oh, holy shit, like that, I'm not going to be an unhealthy person. I really need to take some responsibility for my health. So I started to change my diet and I started to exercise more. And around that time, I got the offer to work for MediHerb. And so I had been following MediHerb's trajectory for many years. And so in starting in 1988, I was buying products, even though I wasn't a practitioner. I was buying herbs. I was buying Korean ginseng, echinacea, licorice, to support the night shift aspects. So when I got the offer in 1990 to go and work for MediHerb, that was like my dream come true. So that was when all of the kind of ikigai kind of lined up, and I'm like, okay, this is my life's purpose now. I'm going to devote it to herbal medicine and ensuring that herbal medicine, it becomes like a dominant feature, like in the medical landscape. And back then, it wasn't as popular and as well accepted as it is now. It was, if you told someone you're a herbalist in 1987, like it was like saying you're a moon worshipping hippie, that lived in Byron Bay. So it's come a long way since then. So there
Yes.
wasn't any kind of specific event. When I was 19, I had my palm read by a person in Victoria who was very renowned as a palm reader. Andrew Verity was his name, and I got a tape recording of it, and my wife wrote it all down. And even though I didn't act out that as a script for my life, I didn't say, oh, he said this will happen when I'm 30, so I've got to do that thing. It was always retrospective. I went back and had a look. So the way that my life has played out has followed that reading that I got when I was 19. So all of the major decisions, the living in the US, when my children would be born, when I would change careers, was all kind of predestined. So I am a big believer that, we come into this world, with a destiny. And if we are open-minded, to follow it, then we can, allow it to kind of guide us without it being a clear kind of direction. You can just follow your passion and end up in the right spot.
It's a beautiful story,
Yeah.
Lee. I didn't know you were actually running a bakery store business, and that makes sense to me that I told you earlier that I went on the website and I just loved your recipe book, recipes,
Yeah.
the ingredients, and I think some of them are like a baking recipe. And
Yeah. The most popular one is a turmeric flatbread, which
yes,
is
that's it. Thank
born
you.
out of my bakery experience. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I've got a lot of recipes I haven't yet put on my website, but yeah, I'm really handy in the kitchen. I do a lot of cooking. My wife and
Yes.
I share the cooking.
I can see from your Instagram because, like I said, I've been following your social media, and then when you introduce some recipe with
Yeah.
mushrooms, and I thought, oh God, I'm gonna do that. It's a you got really creative idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So from
then,
our pre-chat, you were going to ask me about, the influence of my mentors, Kerry Bone,
yeah,
for
can I ask
example.
you another question? Is that okay?
Yeah, yeah.
So, how did your passion for natural medicine evolve over time? And how did you mentor like a Professor Kerry Bone that you mentioned it earlier help ignite your enthusiasm further?
Yeah, well, Kerry and I had been friends since the early 80s. So it was a wonderful opportunity to work with him as his kind of right-hand man in the development of that herbal medicine business, MediHerb. So when I first started, my skills were effectively organizational, time, motion management, managing people, making sure that things got produced on time, working with Kerry to create the systems that would produce the medicines. Because MediHerb in its younger days grew very rapidly. In the early days, sales doubled every month. It's really hard to keep up when a business is growing so quickly. So in the herbal medicine business, I got started off in production, and then I just grew and developed more and more skills in that area. So I did my herbal medicine was kind of like an apprenticeship in the old ways, where I learned what all the herbs did. I learned how to make them. I knew how they all tasted and what a good one looked like and what a bad one looked like before I even ever considered, even becoming a herbalist. So MediHerb wanted to expand into the US, and I had that was 2001. So I'd had 11 years of daily working with Kerry, being basically his right-hand man, and him mentoring me and how to run the business and how to make the world's best extracts and all of the issues about quality and etc. Developing clinical trials. So MediHerb wanted to expand in the US, and they needed someone on the ground in the US. So I was the logical candidate, and my family and I were ready for a change. So living in a small country town didn't kind of work that over that period of time. We wanted to get into a city. So we're really happy to relocate to the US. And that's when the mentoring from Kerry really took off, because part of the work was for me to teach healthcare professionals about the MediHerb product line, the quality aspects to it, how it would be used in a clinical setting. So that really put me under quite a lot of pressure, because I wasn't a herbalist. So I had to develop all of the knowledge base around,
Let's see.
how to support patients with herbs. So doing that teaching and Kerry directing, my learning, and then directing how to use the products really ignited my enthusiasm significantly. So we lived in the US from 2001 to 2008. So that's when I got back from the US. MediHerb wanted me to be an international sales manager, and I was like, no, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to be a herbalist. So that's when I made the decision to change gears, and really kind of let that kind of passion kind of run my life and be directed by it. So and I worked very closely with Kerry, in those intervening years. We would do seminar tours together, and he didn't want to teach the whole day, so he'd teach half a day, I'd teach the other half a day. And in areas where he didn't want to go, I would do the whole lecture myself. So I would use his material. So I became really adept at understanding his way of thinking. All of the work that I do is significantly influenced by him, and the way that I think, the way that I write, the way that I treat a patient is all directly, my interpretation of the information that he's given me.
That's beautiful. And then you're actually talking about it's not just only because I see you as a scientist, like a really strong in the science field. That's how I see you as a teacher and mentor when I went to seminars and webinars and that. But now I really appreciate you sharing about the hands-on learning from Kerry Bone as well.
Yeah, and I'm a little bit nerdy, but I'm very practical as well, and I can relate to the patient and explain things in a way that allows them to understand it. And in the last few years, my direction has been focused on medicinal mushrooms. So I stopped working with MediHerb in 2020, and I didn't want to kind of conflict with Kerry. I didn't want to be teaching herbal medicine directly against MediHerb by working with other companies. So I focused on mushrooms as a way of being neutral in that area. And I realized that mushrooms had got a lot to offer. and I didn't know much about mushrooms, and the companies that I'd worked with previously didn't have like a strong range of mushrooms. So I taught myself to become a mushroom expert and started interacting with other organizations in Canada and the US, where people really liked, what I had created. And so that's my refined passion is, it's still herbal medicine, it's still helping people and teaching, but it's now more about, mushrooms, than it is about herbs, even though I use both in clinic. But medicinal mushrooms are poorly understood, and they're not well represented in herbal medicine. So I'm on a mission to elevate the understanding of medicinal mushrooms and give people the opportunity to fully appreciate what it is about mushrooms that makes them medicinal, so that they can choose quality products, they can get the dose right, they can get the treatment right. And I've developed a theory called the Gourmet 8 theory, which is a kind of a tongue-in-cheek takeoff of Terence McKenna's stoned ape theory, which many people have heard of. But the Gourmet ape theory says that human evolution, in my opinion, and based on the science, has been guided by hominid and hominin ancestors consuming mushrooms on a regular basis. All of primates eat mushrooms, and mushrooms are very ephemeral. And whenever mushrooms are available, there's evidence that our ancestors ate them. And the earliest evidence for human and Neanderthal use goes back like 50,000 years. So there's evidence that Neanderthals were consuming vast amounts of mushrooms that long ago. So I think that we need rather than a duality in the way that we see our diet, where we eat either, fish or vegetables. So we're either vegetarian, vegan, or carnivores or omnivores, that we need to bring mushrooms into the picture so that we've got a tripartite view of the food spectrum and the food pyramid. And humans are healthier when they consume mushrooms on a regular basis. So we should be eating mushrooms daily as a food, but we should also be taking them as a supplement when we don't take them as a food, so that they become a regular part of our diet to keep us healthy. And when we do that, we live longer, we have less cardiovascular disease, we have more cognitive function. When mushroom consumption is low, we're low in a molecule called ergothioneine, which is like a vitamin. It's almost got a vitamin-like status. And as we get older, our levels of ergothioneine lower, and they're very closely correlated with increases in cardiovascular disease, increased cognitive disease, so Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, mild cognitive impairment, and all of the other dementias. Older people are more frail. We don't live as long, and women don't have as healthy a pregnancy when mushrooms aren't part of the equation. So I've wrapped all of that together into what I call the Gourmet ape theory, to try and get people switched on to the idea that we should be eating mushrooms on a regular basis. So in terms of the future, I think that herbal medicine's got a bright future, and I think that we're at a point now where we're pretty confident that herbal medicine is around to stay, that it's a permanent feature. But for me, the advancement is to make sure that medicinal mushrooms are represented in the future of natural health, and to educate the practitioner population and also the public to the need for regular consumption of medicinal mushrooms and edible mushrooms. There's no mushroom that isn't medicinal. Even consuming white button mushrooms or portobello mushrooms is medicinal. And there's good epidemiology studies to show that just one dose of mushrooms like that per week can improve your cognitive function over the course of your life. But you just have to do it every day. Sorry, not every day, you have to do it every week. And you have to do it over the course of a long time. So we need to exercise regularly. You can't just do all of your exercise in 1 month of the year and have the rest of the year off. Oh. So you can't have a good diet just for 1 month of the year and have the rest of the year off. So you can't just have mushrooms rarely. you've got to have them at least a couple of times a week to get the full benefit long term. And then the more often you do it, the more benefit you get. So particularly in Asian clinical trials and epidemiology studies, Asian cuisine is much more focused on including mushrooms than a Western cuisine. And in populations that consume mushrooms every day, the decrease in the incidence of cancer is incredible. It's like your risk of cancer is 85% decreased if you have mushrooms every day. In men it's prostate cancer, in women it's breast cancer, but all of the cancer. So wherever you look, there are all of these benefits. So I've become really super passionate about that. And I haven't got any tattoos, which are really popular, but I'm thinking, hey, it's never too late, and maybe I'll get a mushroom tattoo as
Why not?
part of the whole passion.
Yeah. So quick last question for you, Lee, if that's okay with you. Is that what you would like to pursue your career with your rest of your life as a herbalist and also the medicinal mushroom expert? And what would you like to see in the natural medicine industry in the future? Would you like to add something to that?
Yeah, well, I have probably 10 more years of work before I think about taking my foot off the gas. So in those 10 years, I want to use my time to be an active promoter of medicinal mushrooms, and by whatever vehicle I can to sprout that message. So I'm working with a company in Canada called realmushrooms.com. I think they're one of the best brands that are available, and I'm committed to developing my independent educational offerings to the practitioner community. I'm also going to be developing some patient focused material so that I can push back against the misinformation that's out there. A lot of people are buying mushrooms and they're not actually a mushroom. They're otherwise some other product that doesn't have the same benefits. And I would really like to see there's a lot of medicinal mushrooms that aren't yet in the popular thinking. So we've got a very limited array, but the number of medicinal mushrooms that have value to humans is much bigger than what we're currently using. So I'd like to see, like in the next 10 years, an opening up of the offering that people can choose from. So that we can support health in ways that we can't currently do, because those mushrooms aren't approved for use, as a medicine, for example.
My understanding your passion is to educating people with the correct information of your medicinal passion, a mushroom as your passion to teach, so that people can look after themselves better.
Yes, and that's the whole point. Like if we have a healthy lifestyle, if we eat well, if we sleep well, if we've got a good diet, if we understand, like good mental health practices and stress relieving practices with meditation and relaxation and breathing exercises, then we go a really long way to ensuring that we can stay healthy. And then, when things go wrong, you come see someone like me that can help with a natural approach, which may mean that you don't need to take any sort of pharmaceutical medication, or if you do need to take conventional medication, then a herbal regime may mitigate the side effects or improve the effectiveness of the drug, or mean that you might need to take less of that drug. So I'm very kind of integrative in my approach. So ideally people wouldn't need drugs, but people do. So having a combination of natural and pharmaceutical approaches very often gives the best outcomes.
Yeah, so you are very adaptable and working and with your patients in tailor service so that they can receive the best outcome.
Yeah, and I've been vicariously treating people for many years as an educator, and the feedback from thousands of practitioners that have treated millions of patients is it's a very strong message.
I'm one of them. Well, thank you so much for your amazing sharing. And I really felt your passion towards medicinal mushrooms. And also, I really appreciate what you were saying about, the respect your previous employment with the MediHerb to respect. So I was observing that you're very respectful, humbleness of your personality as well, Lee.
Yeah, thank you. And that's,
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to have that as a person, as a trait. I haven't had to, work as hard at that, where I've had to work hard at other things in my, in my makeup. But for me, that was one that was relatively easy, and that's opened a lot of doors for me. That's facilitated my ability to follow my passion. So, and for those that are listening, and you're curious about things, I think you've got to be authentic and open-hearted, and be responsive, to those cues, and allow them to guide you. It's easy to say. Sometimes it can be hard to do.
Starting from your cannabis, that was something new about you as well. Lots
Yeah.
of gems and new different parts of you, and I could hear from you today. So thank you so much, Lee. I would like also the one thing, is there anything that some resources or information that people wanted to reach you or contact you or find more about you, please, here, if you
Yeah,
wanted to
certainly.
share. Yeah.
So my website is leecarrollherbalist.com, and I'm quite active on Instagram as Lee Carroll Herbalist. So if you're interested in quality information that's not just, happy family pics or nice pics of a mushroom, every week I'm delivering meaningful kind of content that would, advance your knowledge. And if you're interested in purchasing good quality mushroom products, for your own health benefit, then realmushrooms.com doesn't sell to Australia, but you can buy them through iHerb. So I'm a big fan of, any mushrooms can help. When you have health issues, you need to see someone like Mayumi or myself, to get proper guidance. But, taking reishi every day, or taking a combination of mushrooms like Real Mushrooms 5 Defenders, is a very straightforward and easy thing to do. Taking lion's mane is very popular these days, but lion's mane's best for people's brains that aren't working properly. I think it's a bit misguided to think that lion's mane will improve the way that a younger, healthy brain will work. You need Mayumi, or me, to guide you on what nootropic might be best to improve your mental sort of acuity. But if you're interested in exploring the mushroom world, the Real Mushrooms is I think the best brand. And I also use a brand in Australia called Super Feast, which is reasonably good. And I also recommend a brand called Oriveda, Oriveda. They're a good quality brand as well. But my number one pick is Real Mushrooms.
Sure. Okay, I'll look into that, and I'll start probably talking to my clients as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, Super Feast and Oriveda, yes, I look into those products and selling those. But yeah, thank you so much for the Real Mushroom.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah. So I'm gonna add your Instagram and website on the actual event this page, so that people probably can access easily. And Lee, thank you so much for sharing different parts of you. Like I said before, I always see as a scientist talking about science and with the Western herbalism, and now I was able to hear different parts of you, and I'm so grateful for this opportunity, hearing your passion. And all the best with your practice, and pursue a career with the research, educating practitioner like myself with your medicinal mushroom.
Thanks, Mayumi. It's been my pleasure. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I'll stop the live video now. Thank you so much, everyone.